It began as a battle, like many others. Fleets clashing in the dark void of space, the blinding flashes of superheated plasma, and the cold, silent wreckage of fallen ships driven aimlessly. Titan had arrived with the intent to push back the invaders, drive them away, and perhaps, if they fled, allow them to live. But then he saw it. The AAIHF unity, a symbol of hope, stability, and peace, was a crumpled shadow of its former self. Its once proud hull, sleek and unmarred, was torn open in countless places. Fires burned in the vacuum of space, only barely contained by emergency containment fields. The structural damage was horrific. Twisted metal warped from the brutal punishment it had endured. The ship's glow, once radiant beacon of peace, flickered like a dying star. Edinstvo himself was barely alive, his body battered and broken, clinging to life by a thread. Titan's heart twisted in agony at the sight. His dearest friend, the one he had trusted with so much, the one who he had promised to protect, was teetering on the edge of death. The warmth of mercy drained from his heart like water from a shattered vessel. He stared at Edinstvo's limp form, his gaze hardening into something unrecognizable, something darker. Titan's voice echoed across the command channels of every ship in the combined Imperial fleets. It wasn't just a command, it was a decree. Kill them all. No mercy, no survivors, no prisoners. Not a single life was to be spared. The fleet's objectives were updated in real time, and the tone of the battle shifted instantly. The slaughter that followed was nothing short of apocalyptic. Every ship, every soldier, every living being in the enemy invasion, nearly 4 billion souls, was wiped out with terrifying precision. For every warning beacon, every distress signal they broadcasted, Titan's fleets responded with annihilation. Escape pods were tracked down and destroyed before they could even activate emergency drives. Enemy ships attempted to flee, but not one of them made it beyond the range of Titan's combined fleet. The void was awash with fire and wreckage, and none of it belonged to his forces. Every light snuffed out, every voice silenced. This wasn't just war. This was annihilation. This was eradication. This was the day Titan showed his fangs. The massacre wasn't enough to satisfy the storm that raged within Titan. The pain of seeing Adinstvo on the brink of death had unlocked something that could never be sealed away ever again. Titan had been known across the galaxy as the kind of souls, a creator of worlds, a caretaker of peace, and a guardian of the helpless. But on this day, he became something else. The sleeping giant had awakened. His path of vengeance was unrelenting. Over the next 3 years, Titan launched a campaign that would be spoken of in hushed tones for millennia to come. It wasn't just a war, it was a galactic reckoning. He hunted down the 3 empires responsible for the attack. No diplomatic channels, no negotiations, no terms of surrender. His decree was as clear as it was terrifying. Turn them all into molten slag. Planet after planet fell to the onslaught. His fleets didn't just bombard them, they annihilated them with the cold, clinical efficiency of a machine. Millions of ships swarmed the enemy systems, unleashing destruction on a scale never before witnessed. Titan didn't just destroy ships, he destroyed civilizations. Entire worlds were bombarded until their crusts split open like cracked eggshells. The surface of each planet liquefied into molten slag, its cities reduced to rivers of lava and molten metal. Billions of lives perished in moments. Those who fled underground were hunted down. Those who hid in fortresses of steel were melted alive. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. It was said that 307 billion lives were wiped from existence. Not a single life remained on those worlds. Every star system that once belonged to the 3 empires now bore the same sight. Scorched, molten worlds, glowing red with the heat of destruction. What once had been centers of trade, politics, and culture were reduced to barren husks, dead and uninhabitable for millennia. But Titan wasn't finished. He called upon his allies, and they answered. From across the galaxy, ships from every corner of known space gathered, from fleets belonging to empires the Astral Empire had never even encountered, to wandering nomadic war bands who owed Titan old favors. Over 9.3 trillion soldiers and hundreds of millions of ships rallied to his side. It wasn't an army, it was a galactic tide. With his allies at his back, Titan moved from system to system like a force of nature. Entire fleets of enemy ships were dismantled in days. Capital ships that once inspired fear across the galaxy were ripped apart like paper. Planets that once had been bastions of power were turned into fields of molten glass. No one resisted. No one survived. Titan had one rule: no life remains. His wrath became legend. The ASIMC Shepherd, once a beacon of hope and creation, was renamed the ASIMC Pretsnika, the Judgment. Its once pristine exterior, which had reflected the light of stars with a soft glow, was now bathed in deep crimson red, the color of the billions of lives it had helped to destroy. Its armor, once the color of the brightest morning, was now blacker than the depths of the void itself. His fleet of peaceful creation ships, tools of healing and restoration, had been transformed into harbingers of apocalypse. Though they wielded no weapons, only the tools of creation and terraforming, and yet these tools became the most fearsome weapons the galaxy had ever known. The machines that once built worlds now destroyed them with terrifying efficiency. No warhead could match the devastation of a tool repurposed for vengeance. Even Titan himself joined in. He unleashed the full might of his ship's star core, a device designed to give life to barren worlds. Um, and just as a reminder, he has tribodium refraction plates around that star core, and he pretty much pushed that star core to max criticality, unleashing quasar level blasts of radiation onto the enemy planets. Instead, he turned it into an instrument of extinction. He personally sterilized 40 worlds with unrelenting radiation. Every living cell, every microbe, every breath of life was purged. The radiation lingered for eons, ensuring that no life would ever take root there again. By the end of his rampage, the three empires ceased to exist. But his work wasn't over. Titan harvested the planets he had destroyed, pulling their resources from the molten wreckage. Every resource was processed and distributed to his allies, stockpiled for future wars, and delivered as gifts to those who had answered his call. Pretty much all of the planets were stripped down to the core and beyond. Pretty much the planets that were there were not there anymore, and every single bit of matter that was of a planet was processed into resources. 78 planets were harvested in total. The bounty was so vast that it fueled the growth of countless fleets and the rise of entire empires. Titan's former allies became superpowers, their wealth and military might bolstered by his generosity. Yet he saved a portion for one, for his friend, for a dense foe. Titan took the processed resources from 5 entire Earth-sized planets and set them aside, hidden from even the eyes of the Astral Empire. These stockpiles would be revealed only when a dense foe was strong enough to claim them. It was a quiet act of love, a reminder, beneath the crimson armor and shadowed name, that the Titan of old still lived. But the galaxy would never ever see him the same again. He had gone from the shepherd to the judgment, no longer just a peaceful giant, but a figure of terror, a warning etched into the history of the stars. His name was now spoken in reverence and fear, for all who heard it knew the truth. If you awaken the giant, you will know wrath unlike anything the universe had ever known. When he returned home, his ships were scarred, his soul heavier than it had ever been. His ship, the bringer of peace and stability, was drenched in the blood of his enemies. His fangs had been bared, his claws revealed. And though the blood had been washed away, the crimson glow of his fleet would never fade. He was Titan, creator, destroyer, harbinger of life, harbinger of doom. So, more information about this. Titan never wanted this to happen. He was willing to, like I said earlier in the story, he was willing to let the enemy fleet leave with, a good portion of their people alive. But unfortunately, with seeing that his dearest friend was almost dead, and that this was a unprovoked attack by an enemy empire, by three enemy empires, and a massive invasion fleet that was made to subjugate the Astrovacan Empire, um, Titan was just like, this cannot be ever allowed to happen again. And what pushed Titan over the edge was not only was this an unprovoked attack, and not only did a lot of the Astral Empire actually not come to that call, but also this was specifically made by the Dark Empire using three puppet empires to um, to take over Adensfo's closest and most powerful ally. So the Astral Empire sits right next to the Estovakian Empire. And this massive fleet of 40,000 capital ships and hundreds of thousands of more support ships was coming in to take out the Estovakians, to bring their people into slavery, and to completely be taken over. And this would put the Astral Empire in a very detrimental position. And this was a fleet that was made for max destruction. And they weren't strong enough to take on the full might of the Astral Empire, but they were strong enough to take on the Estovakians. And that would have turned the Estovakian Empire into a horrible breeding ground for enemy presence. So Titan, Titan knew all this stuff was going to happen just by doing quantum scans of the enemy fleet. And then when he saw their ruthlessness and willingness to try to kill his dearest friend, Titan kind of just fell off the deep end. He would eventually restore his name as a harbinger of peace and the bringer of, life to many worlds and empires. But for hundreds of more years, for many generations, he would definitely be still known as the sleeping giant you don't ever awaken. And Titan knew that this would destroy his reputation, but he knew that he also had to, take out this enemy, because if he allowed this enemy to, continue to live, they would continue to send larger and larger fleets. And pretty much this was a direct ultimatum to the Dark Empire themselves, saying, you better get out of the galaxy and never come back again, or else I will bring devastation to you as well. So Titan pretty much destroyed the three empires that were in the galaxy that were part of the Dark Empire. And remember, the Dark Empire is pretty much the Sodom and Gomorrah of the galaxy, of the universe. Like, their puppet empires are like places of like full filth and debauchery. And sin. Like, these empires are like the most evil of evil empires, just like the most wicked and horrible of people. So Titan finally had to say enough was enough, and he ordered the complete and utter devastation of these three empires, resulting in 307 billion lives being destroyed, but that also allowed countless other empires and civilizations to be able to benefit off of the destruction of these three evil empires. So, although the rest of the galaxy would be terrified of Titan, when he bestowed upon them the spoils of war and give them countless bounties of resources and supplies because of this, they were very grateful to him. And they were able to make their own fleets and build up their empires when they couldn't before, because those three Dark Empire puppet empires would keep them under the thumb. So, Titan doesn't usually ever go outside of the galaxy. But even those outside the galaxy heard of this and they were like, oh my gosh, Titan, wow, okay. And that actually kind of put a shield of protection around the Astral Empire and its like 15 allies. The Good People's Republic also received like about like 10 planets worth of resources for what they did for the Astral Empire. Like the Good People's Republic actually did the majority of the heavy lifting when it came to that war. Um, Outside of Titan, Titan's forces did most of the damage, but the Good People's Republic uh, were so numerous and so effective at their wartime tactics that they worked perfectly and seamlessly with Titan's advances. And Titan and the Good People's Republic were the two main forces that came in to aid the Astral Empire. I mean, to aid Edinstvo. Titan at that point didn't care about the Astral Empire. He only cared about his friend. And he was going to do whatever was needed to make sure his friend would be safe and sound. So that's what Titan did. He took care of his friend, and because of that, Edensfo was actually able to make mostly a full recovery. He would still be dealing with a lot of this PTSD and other horrible things that came from this battle for quite a long time. But he became physically and mentally sound enough to lead the Empire again after about 10 years. But that was after Titan did a major overhaul of the Astral Empire. And you guys are going to be seeing that in my next video about what Titan did. Titan is still that same sweet, loving creature that we all know and, hold dear in our hearts. But even the kindest and sweetest of people finally say enough is enough. But yeah, because of Titan's rampage across the galaxy destroying these three empires, this would allow the galaxy to have at least a couple more millennia of peace and ever vigilance against the reaches of the Dark Empire. Eventually, hopefully in the next couple millennia, the entire galaxy led by Edinstvo will be able to lead one final end battle against the Dark Empire. And this will finally be able to be the war to end all, well, hopefully the war to end all major galactic wars, and will bring forth the utter and complete destruction of the Dark Empire once and for all. So, yeah. Although Titan's name was soiled because of this, he had also gained a lot of extra respect and admiration by his allies and people that he knew and that owed him favors, because just like you guys helped me, I'm going to help you. But they also know don't ever cross him. And like it is, Titan is still that kind, sweet individual. It's just he's going to be living with this for quite a long time, and it's going to affect him. He's going to have fits of rage. He's going to have PTSD, but he's still going to be that kind, sweet soul that he still is. Just unfortunately a bit scarred. But yeah, with the proper support networks and new advances by the Lakarstvo Empire, which is uh, the major medical um, empire of the galaxy, he should make pretty much a full recovery from this and be able to return back to normal within the next 20 years with proper reconstitution therapies and PTSD therapy and such and more. So yeah, I mean, pretty much overall, everybody's going to come out of this all right. It's just they're still going to have the memories of this horrible war and what followed after that. So yeah, I mean, overall, it's a good ending, but it's also bitter because it hurt so many people for quite a long time. But in the end, we were able to get rid of three massive, devastating empires in the galaxy and remove the claws of the Dark Empire from our galaxy for the foreseeable future.